because I'm curious. And there's a prevailing wisdom in Europe that normally you shouldn't take position on U.S. elections. You should stay kind of neutral. You have been clearly expressing your position, going to Maralago twice in a bunch of weeks, and at the same time criticizing Joe Biden. How comes? Why did you decide to be so outspoken? Even in this capacity, balance, not just as a prime minister.
Balance is important. So we would not like to involve into domestic political issues of any other country, only till the point as they do with our politics. So what I'm doing is exactly the same level of involvement of Hungarian prime minister into the American election as the American bureaucracy of administration, democratic administration, is involved into the Hungarian domestic affairs. So I keep the balance. That's the first. But second, there is another reason why I'm so much in favor of Trump. Because my understanding is that losing the competitiveness of the West, and especially the European Union, our response up to now is rather a kind of bloc formation, economic blocks. And we have a political expression of the same thing. Democracies, again, also autocracies. But the approach of President Trump was different, as is different. This is a plan of deal-making. So what we need, deal-making approach. Otherwise, it will be difficult to cooperate with the western part of the world economy, with the eastern part of the world economy. It will be not without conflicts, even, and discussions and disputes between the European Union and America. Trump possible presidency does not mean that there will be no difference of interest in this field. But a deal-making approach is far better than to create a kind of blocks of the Eastern world economy and the Western world economy. And we are moving to that direction. And I think it's totally against the competitiveness of the European Union. It's not the interest of Europe. Our interest is to cooperate well with the West, which means United States, and to cooperate economically as much as we can with the East. Now China, and even with the Russians after the war, and on the territories when there are no sanctions, I would suggest to cooperate even with the Russians.
So if you accept the idea of the second Cold War we were discussing this morning, you would stay in between?
No, I lived 26 years of my life in Cold War. When the world economy was not united, it was divided into two parts. And may I say that 26 years of my life, personal life, and the life of my nation was rather bad. So when the world economy is divided into blocks, Central Europe and guys like me, we are always on the losing side. So I don't support any Cold War, any blockage, any blocking approach. I'm supporting a unified world economy as much as we can. And we Europeans, even having some disadvantages, we should be better and better and better and to compete. To compete and increasing our level of performance more and more and more. This
was supposed to be my last question, but they're telling me that there is one question. So super quick question and quick answer. Where does it come from? I don't have the name on the screen. Me lo dica pure apertamente, non c'è problema. No, così non ci riesco. Leggo il labiale ma con fatica. Quindi con piacere, o se no se alzate la mano e... Steven Erlanger, somewhere in the room.
Yes, way in the back, being hidden by everybody else. Prime Minister Orban, we met when you were first Prime Minister. We were both a bit skinnier then. What I wanted to ask you was about relations with NATO. You're talking about a European defense organization, which is something the Americans have actually want a bigger pillar. And yet you won't let NATO supply Ukraine from Hungary. So is NATO an alliance for picking and choosing? Do you think a European defense organization, as you describe it, would it be a rival to NATO? Or do you want to work within NATO? Would it have different foreign policy views, do you think? Be great if you could explain a bit more what you mean. Thank you, sir.
I think this is one of the prime questions for the future. And this is under discussion even inside the Prime Minister Council, the European Council. May I introduce only my position? So I think the experience of this war, Ukraine-Russian war, revealed the fact that Europe is weak. Militarily, on the industrial side, and the army side as well. So we are too small, we are too weak. And without having a coordinated industry of defense, without having a coordinated army building process of the member states, we cannot be stronger than we are today. So I think there's no question about it. The question is whether it should be inside NATO or outside NATO. And the reason why it is a smart question is that there are some members of European Union who are not members of NATO and other members are. And the question is whether we can build up a European defense structure where the non-NATO members are part of it, and at the same time this whole European architecture is belonging to NATO. So the question is very much relevant. My answer is yes, it's possible. So in my understanding, the European defense system is belonging to NATO, and this is the European flank of NATO. That's how I imagine.
Very important. Thanks.